I've worked for several like mobile games in the past. I have extensive experience at Zynga as a lead artist. And yeah, that's my basic like workflow. I've been doing this for a long time, and I feel like the luckiest guy in the world doing it.
Yeah, just so you guys know how long. So Frank and I worked together in 2011. So that's we're a couple of old guys up
Yeah.
here. Joe, can you give us a little bit about your
I'll
background?
pass it to Chris. He's more interesting. He's more happening.
All right, Shraj.
All right, so my name is Shiraj, and I'm living here in Bangalore right now. I started my career back in 2002, and I got started with book illustration industry in the beginning, and then I got a bit into classical animation, which you used to do on the Lightbox. And then I slowly went on to web development and graphic design and illustration for websites, and then Flash games. And then I got more into mobile game when iPhone industry came into the boom, like 2007, 2009 and all. I left India to work in Europe for a few years. So I was in Barcelona, in Spain. So I worked as principal visual development artist in King, which is the makers of Candy Crush. So I was part of the Candy Crush IP development in the beginning. And then I also moved to Rovio, which is in Helsinki, Finland. And I worked as studio art director for the strategy studio, the battle studio. And then when pandemic hit, decided to come with my wife and my kid back to India. And I'm right now remotely working from here, working for Moon Active. And yeah, that's it.
Phil?
Oh, that's a glowing resume. So I'm an architect by education. I did my architecture, then NID, classical animation, and from there, then I did my masters at. I just like moved from art and design to product management masters at Kellogg's, and recently I did my diploma in AI product management where I had to do programming. I wanted to learn programming because like without knowing programming, it's going to be very difficult to understand what is happening in this industry itself, like what in behind all this. So yeah, but unfortunately they made me to do predictions for a nuclear reactor. That was my thesis. Yeah. Anyways, ChatGPT helped me to program all of that. So I've been like, I started at 2002, same time. Started as a junior art director at BBC. So those days, virtual sets were there for the newsreaders. So I have to design the virtual set. That was the first AR experience or like AR thing. So I started as a junior art director. And then was in motion design, art director. I worn multiple hats. Then I started a company. I was in DreamWorks, Technicolor, as head of the studio, and then I started a company. The company helped create Formville, and then when Zynga India came in, I was head of art in Zynga India for some time. Then came out again, started a company. Like it's nice. Now my sixth startup, and so plus I'm more an art director. I'm more a designer and a product person. I don't do art anymore. I spend more time in general product management and user experience a lot. But given the inflation and AI, I've been doing art. Like, so I'm not like Krish, where like I'm not a passionate artist. I just take a pencil only when there is a money associated to it. So that's me. But yes, I worked on AAA games like Gears of War, God of War as art director, and moved from that industry, Zynga, ex-Zynga. It's good to be an ex-Zynga.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. So then part of that whole Zynga fraternity, that's me. Yeah. And I'm a neighbor, your neighbor. Like my office is exactly opposite to Toit. My company's name is Gajabuja.
Okay.
I think we need to cross-pollinate a lot. And so my company is registered in Singapore, and we have opened a new shop in Bangalore.
All right, cool.
Yeah, if you want to go to toy, just use our as the base. If you want to wait, come. Yeah.
All right, so maybe we could first start by trying to define what does it mean to have globally compelling art. And certainly when we look at the art industry in India, we've got some services studios that are working on AAA games, and we've got, some art being done here.
Yeah.
But what would you consider a globally compelling art? And is there any studio in India that you think is close?
So, my first startup was a outsourced studio, right? Like even when I worked with Technicolor, Technicolor was an outsourced company, and so yes, there are talents. There are amazing talents which can, because a lot of Call of Duty, Rockstar, name it, like it goes from India, right? Like there is huge animation pool who have been working for like all these big Marvel movies. There are talent pool, but the delta is them starting up a gaming studio, them starting up something new, right? That is not that. Yes, there are talent. To answer your question, it's yes. There are talent pool. India can contribute to the global market, but there are deltas where they're still working as an employee in these kind of outsourced studios, which is still working for some other games from West, and because they don't have the time to wait. If there is someone to invest and then help them in the longer runway and give them better takeoff or launch pad, definitely there are possibility, but there should be a lot of guidance from West. So we need to bring in more art directors. See, I'm lucky to be trained in West. I was so lucky to be trained by Westerners, because the whole philosophy of what we are thinking about art and design was not created in India. It's not an Indian philosophy at all, Indian ideology at all. It's created by Westerners. We have to bring in Westerners and learn it from them.
Frank, as a Westerner, what do you think?
No, I 100% agree. Like, there's a giant talent. There really is. It's just, I'm talking just pure art creatively, like as an art aesthetic. There's a giant talent pool in India, because all those studios from like Europe and America, like they all like export from like India to do like the renderings, and like there's a giant talent pool. And he's 100% correct. It's more of a matter of like investment, because like if you take like the most amazing game programmer, game designer, game artist, like they don't have the revenue to start their own studio. They need investment. So you will not see like that level of talent like develop anything, because like they have nowhere to go, they have nowhere to do anything with it. Whereas like if you were in like San Francisco and you had like a lead engineer, he earns like what, 200K? Like I'm talking the top 200K. He put that in the bank, and then one day he's like, I don't want to do this anymore after 10 years. I want to start my own studio. India doesn't have that, so India can't really produce that sort of thing.
Raj, do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I agree to both of them. Let's try to understand what does globally appealing product means, right? It could have different meanings, but let's try to understand what could be the most common component for this. So when you talk about globally appealing, it means that it should be unique in a way that this can feel innovative to people. Whenever anyone around the globe, when they look at this content, they're able to find something novel in this, something new in this, which looks very fresh, and then it respects and borrows some inspiration from something cultural roots, like something that is iconic for how you would look at a Japanese piece, manga and anime, and then you can associate with that demographic, or for example, Korean or African or European or whatever kind of like format. So globally appealing means standard in quality, of course, like very high production value, then some sort of like cultural novelty with the innovation, and then it also should encompass something which is narratively storyteller, like something that can basically gives you a glimpse and emotional journey whenever you experience a content in whichever way. I'm not even talking about games here right now, like the stories that we are able to build, the films that we are able to create, the comics that we can do. If they're able to match these criteria from something cultural, something innovative, and something which is also technologically advanced, I think that makes a very polished product that someone can associate that, yeah, this is coming from
Yeah.
this region.
And Shiraj, maybe like to your point, I think you're making a very strong point that maybe you don't necessarily need a huge production budget to have a globally compelling game, because you look like there are some small studios with like Altos Adventure, which is an old game. It's like two guys, but the art style is just so unique and fresh. Ori's Adventure, there are games that have like this uniqueness. And so why do you think there aren't, and when you think of like famous artists, there's many famous artists out there that are recognizable, but maybe not so many Indian artists that are so famous or recognizable. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so I agree to what you said. I think right now we are not in the capacity to deliver Wukong. I don't think we can do that right now. What India needs to do right now, we cannot do Black Myth. We need to have something in the lines of Hades, or even I would say Hollow Knight, or Monument Journey, or Journey in general.
Yeah.
I think we need those kind of like baby steps, but they are individually some very polished product that can start establishing the IP of from India, the style, and things like these. And then there is this bigger step about coming up with something as massive as like a Hollywood content, AAA. Like I don't think we are in that space right now to get into that kind of a AAA step. Something more like what Supergiant does, like with the games like Hades, for example,
Right.
would be a better step, in my opinion.
Frank,
So yeah, so speaking about just like a artistic like culture sorry, speaking of like just an artistic culture in India, like you can convince mom and dad to be an engineer like in programming and say, oh, I'm making games, but what I'm doing is being an engineer, and like mom and dad are like, great, engineer, fabulous, this is a great idea. Telling mom and dad you want to be an artist, not as compelling to them. They're going to say, you cannot be an artist, like this is a terrible idea, you need to become a doctor or an engineer. That's really like the culture, like from primarily what I've seen from the culture of India is like, if you tell mom and dad, I want to do something cool, like be a great painter or even a great CG artist or a great illustrator, or like I love fantasy, I want to draw all this stuff, you're not going to be compelled to do that. So you really got to, like, so the only people who are actually doing that are the most passionate of the passionate of the passionate of the passionate. And that just creates a very small pool. Whereas like if there was more of a, hey, mom and dad, I can do this thing and it could earn me money, I could support a family with this, you would have a lot more of a sort of artistic culture in India.
So I resonate a lot with you because like I come from a family of IAS and IPS, right? Like my mom is an IAS and my dad is an IRS. He was a commissioner. And they didn't want. They wanted me to get into engineering because like at that point of time, everybody in my family was a software engineer. So when I told like I'm joining NID after architecture, oh, how much money are you going to earn? Can you earn at least like 20,000 per month? That was the biggest question, how much you earn. And luckily, like I had a strong platform, so I could pursue my passion, right? Because my family was well settled. They were above the need. I don't have to work, and I can still rely on my parents. They can support me for a longer time. So I was able to explore everything, right? Like I had a lot of money to study about this. I went abroad. They were okay for me to go and learn. And how many people would know at that 2000, and there was something called NID, because nobody didn't know even there is a design education in India. So see, the problem starts from the culture itself. The second thing is, though the passion, lot of passion is there, it is curbed and nipped because it doesn't have the finance to support it, right? Like I was lucky in a way that my family gave me the ability agency to do what I want to do. And even I was able to do many startups. See, I did one of the first startup, like ZVKY, if you know, like that was an art outsource studio. So I was able to do that because I had the support from my family, and I can stop working. But as an artist, I didn't make money. But like, so I could go back and ask them, okay, I'm going to do some startup. Like, well, can you do this? Even then, I started a outsource studio because from day one, I'm going to make money. Because in outsource, you get paid immediately. So that's why I did an outsource studio also. So, see, with art, artist being an artist, it's like, yes, the pay is very less for them. And see, I'm also going to be very brutal. There are millions of dumb schools like Arena Multimedia, or like there are so many schools which are like they don't. The teachers are have zero knowledge about the philosophy of design or quality, and they teach these kids, and they come out and they think like, okay, I'm going to get a job, and they come out with nothing. And we as a studio who are headed by people like us, we don't want to hire them. And definitely they're diluting
predatory schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of those schools here.
Suraj, how'd you learn?
Yeah, I agree to what he's saying here. I think somewhere we lost that creative identity for the country in a way. I mean, like I'm not an expert here, and I've been just an observer from how I have evolved reading comics and stuff like this, and have known a bit of part of the piece of history from India. But this mindset about thinking about what you're going to do in your education, and then what's your career going to be, it involves a lot around stability, making an income, getting a job, like things like these. And in that case, it fine-tunes and programs your brain in such a way that you end up being more of a person who requires instructions, or who you want to know, like, what are you supposed to do? And in many cases, whenever I have worked with, and I was myself in the same realm as well, I felt like if I'm in a studio, if I'm with any employer, I would do what I'm being told to do or what they expect me to do. And it took me a lot of conversion in my way of working, where I started to speak up, I started to make recommendations, I started to change things, and I started to make suggestions. And it's very hard. Like most people don't like to do that. Like when I build up my team, and if I would have many people from, for example, from Europe or elsewhere, I would say that they generally tend up taking more initiatives and coming up with their own even questions to you, back to you. But otherwise, most Indians, unfortunately, started to like to take, like, okay, what do I need to do? And someone has to tell me on what that is. And just to, sorry, one more topic here is we had such a great history earlier with all the, I mean, there are Mahabharata, there are like so much of like stuff which talks about the creativity, there are temples, there's so much of stuff out there. There were painters and whatnot. And then all of a sudden that saw a global decline where common consumers, like if you go to any big city for tourism, like New York or I don't know, Barcelona or whatever, the most prime location in the city with the biggest architectural building might be an art museum, most commonly. Like, and if a tourist is coming to visit that city, their 80% itinerary is about visiting these museums and stuff like this. And over here, commonly, I think the audience have stopped appreciating and promoting the art, and therefore challenge for a career for an artist becomes more difficult, because you are trying to do something which is not appreciated between the mass as commonly as maybe France or places like these.
Yeah, so maybe to your point though, like, and maybe I could add a little bit of spiciness here, because I actually disagree with you guys when it comes to, you say there's a lot of talent here, but I would say at the lead or art director level, there isn't. And it kind of speaks to this point where you said you had to fight to not have to just listen to instruction. And when we think about having unique, recognized artists from India, for whatever reason, whether it's cultural or some other reason, that doesn't seem to be happening. So I would argue that it's not just an issue of there isn't enough money here. I have offers for money all the time just because I'm here in India, right? And I think the money's here, but the money does not recognize the ability for a team here to be able to deliver on something. And I think it's not at the artist level, I think it's at the lead level. And whatever these issues are, whether it's cultural or otherwise, but I wanted to ask you guys about that. So what are the gaps? So maybe there's a cultural gap, but despite the cultural gap, you guys are saying there are a lot of artists, right? Is it just we're missing the leads, or how would you guys
Can I
compare?
take this? Like, yeah, I want to make it more spicy.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we need to speak about Maslow's triangle, right? We all know what is Maslow's pyramid. Like, so, I would like to spend a little time explaining. See, Maslow's pyramid starts with like people at the bottom of the chain and then top of the chain. And Kim, you come from a country where the country is already in the top of the chain. Art will thrive when the basic needs are satisfied. And creativity will thrive only when the basic needs are satisfied. What is basic needs and how it is done? It is done through money. Money is the biggest raw material. And we, right here, like I pay a road tax, my taxes are heavy, I pay that's tax, everything is taxed, and even I can't put my child in a government school because government schools are not good here. And I can't go to a normal government hospital because it's not good here. So I have to pay extra for everything. We are not on the top of the food chain. We are not on the top of the pyramid. So art is an extra here. Art is not a way of living here. And yes, at that point, India was flourishing. They made beautiful architecture. So when he called it a polish, that polish is the last thing we do. When, you engineers build it. And what is the difference between artist and engineer and a designer, right? See, engineers build it. They don't have soul to it. They are writers. It's like an essay. It doesn't have a soul to it. Poem is different. It has soul to it, right? That was there in India, but it's not there anymore. For anyone to be creative, yes, nobody's like Van Gogh where he struggled a lot and chaos came out of him and it was beautiful, right? But art needs to be above the pyramid. That is when the art will thrive. And if you see a lot of economists or philosophers, they will say art thrives only when you're on the top of the pyramid. And India is not there yet. And India's struggling to survive. Artists are struggling to survive. I see most of them join companies because they want to make money. They're not passionate about Indian art industry. So it is very difficult. We need, see, it's very easy to say, no, there's a lot of money. Yeah, from your point of view, yes. But as an artist, now I can go and raise money because, you know why I did my product management masters in Kellogg's? Because I found there is something I don't know how to do. I am not able to sell myself as an artist. I am not able to speak the language of people who have money. I'm not able to tell them how am I going to make money out of whatever I'm doing. That every artist lack, not only in India, it's throughout the world. They all lack the language of VCs. And in India, it's more.
So I'll pancake on top of that. When I say like huge talent pool, I'm literally talking about like technical knowledge and talent. Like I know you can find lots of people who know how to do anatomy correctly, render scenes correctly, like do everything like correctly. And what you're talking about is like as an art lead point of view, is the like all art, as he was saying, all art is kind of treated as a practical matter to get from point A to point B. There are no like who's the splatter artist? Who am I thinking of? The splatter paint guy. Yeah, no, there are no Pollocks. There are no Pollocks who are like, I'm just going to do big abstract art. There's no practicality to it. I'm not doing this to make a bajillion dollars, even though at the end of the day he made a bajillion dollars. But like, there's no like thing like that where I'm doing this for me and I'm doing this for my own self-expression. Everything is, I need to produce something to put bread in my mouth at the end of the day. And in order to get from that sort of like practicality at the bottom, like the surface level guy, to the upper level guy, you need to think of it as a more holistic view of life. And it's not treated as like a thing that like most Indian artists, even the best of the best, can't like say, I need to do something just for me today because I have to work constantly to put bread in my mouth at the end of the day.
So your argument is if you can't make a living as an artist, you can never become a lead if you can't start making.
Yeah, it's a
decent-
catch-22 basically. It's a catch-22.
How did you do it, Raj?
I want to talk about the art lead as a role and how it has evolved here back in India. Like, I mean, currently in the landscape of game developers around India, I see that there are many companies which are coming up with their own product. Like, for example, you. But long back, like 20 years, 25 years ago, it was a completely service industry. And back then, 20 years ago, when it was mostly service, what did an art director mean? An art director meant that someone who is able to lead and manage the rest of the artists so that whenever we have an outsourcing request from anyone and they have this 100 asset list and a defined style that came from somewhere, they're able to make the artist work by organizing the plan for them, working with the producer, making sure that whatever style requirements are, the artists are able to follow it. Basically, they are one level of reviewers, and then they happen to submit it. So that was mostly it. Now, the kind of lead, the art director that we really need is more about a person who is at the C level or founder level, but with that creative bent of mind. And in that case, if you really go about hiring someone and asking them to be the art director, their first understanding about this role is, okay, I'm coming over here and my job is basically to manage your timelines and get the work done, whatever you're being told. But they're not going to collaborate that easily forward and come and say that, let's build this product this way. Let's come up with this narrative, let's come up with this kind of gameplay, let's come up with this kind of visual identity, and let's build the team around it. They will still rely on more of the general direction coming from the business guy and the product guys, and then they will more focus on the execution. So this is where some of that understanding becomes a bit more problematic for. However, I mean, I want to make some mention of the names of these games as well, because there have been some shift in the recent past. Like, for example, Razi, like it was something which was, which took one step further ahead of delivering something that is iconic. It had technical glitches and problems, and therefore maybe it didn't perform. But it was that first step. Pretty good. I would also say, for example, Asura, which was trying to do Vemba, went into a very different direction, more like an indie game. Of course, developed with some Canadian influence of production. So that's out there. But yeah, it's like games like these have an Indus Battle Royale, which is also coming from Pune. They have tried to create that identity, taking the roots of the cultural Indian demographic and shifting it. Like Indus also, as much as I know, like faces some technical problems right now from the performance. That's why it is getting a bit harder to for the players to make it popular and grow. But let's see how they evolve. Yeah.
So, sorry, like I just wanted to add something up, and see, I want to be more critical right here. Raji is not a good product, and Raji is. I would not even let Raji into the market because, like, I worked in with Gears of War. I was an art director for God of War, and Raji doesn't pass that benchmark. That is the mindset.
Is it a step forward?
We want to appreciate averageness. Oh, it's the first time. It's good because it's first time. Okay to be mediocre. No. See, Rajamouli is not James Cameron. But in India, people have the mentality of saying, he's James Cameron of India. No, right? You know how people think, and you know how in our think. So it's very difficult to work with me. It's very difficult to work with me because, like, I push pixel. And so, see, there is something called quality management principles, right? Like, Steve Jobs considered these principles as like the god. Like, there are two guys who set it up, like Joseph Juran and Edward Deming. So you guys go and find these books and read. Art is part of this quality management, right? Like, see, art is part of aesthetics. There's so many things layered to quality. And when things are beautiful, the things are beautiful not just because how it looks, it feels, and how the experience is. Like, See that polish when he told the juiciness, that polish, right? That's the final line. So I was looking at his review. Oh, you know what? There are 2 steps. Make it as 1 line, and it is looking. That is a straight line. Don't put it as a straight line because this game doesn't need that, and make it little. Add some character to the gun. Right? See, these are people will say like, why do you need that? And because it's going to be there only for like 1 second or something. But you go the next mile and make sure like it is done perfectly, right? Like the iPhone looks good because there is so much chamfer and so much thought put in each and every small things they do. That level of thing is still not there from India. Have not seen one product which has come out of India which has that amount of quality. See, I can be hired as an art director in Zynga. Krish can be hired as an art director or a head of quality in places like Moon Active because they want that product. They want that out of here. If I go and push that pixel in certain companies, they don't need it. So I'm not going to name the companies. They're going to say, so Ludo King is making so much money. And why do it's even with the bad art and bad quality, it's making so much money. Why do I need to push so much pixels and on that?
So Dylan, I think you make a good point. It's a conversation we have in our studio as well is like, should we say this is good for Indian quality or should we say this is good for global quality? And you're making an argument that India should try to just have a global quality. So then what's missing? What would prevent a studio from making a game that does have that global quality?
So it's the leaders. The quality descends from top to down, not from bottom to up, right? The leaders, the CEOs of the company should have an iota of understanding about art, about aesthetics. They need to have a little sense about whom to choose as an art director. So in Zynga, there was
but
a guy.
But if you don't have art directors here with that capability, then
yes,
what are you going to
have.
do? We do have.
We do have. We do have because there are so many people.
We're going to have to convince Siraj to leave.
So we have a lot of art directors who have worked. See, for example, right, my juniors when I started like 2002, and they have worked with DreamWorks. They have worked with Epic. There are still people available. They're not coming back here because they don't have a demand here.
So they're overseas.
They're overseas and they're ready to come back. But if they have a demand, they're going to come back here. See, one example. I'm very critical, right? Like in Zynga, there was an art director who didn't know anything about art. And he had to, because he was hired by an HR, even before the whole team was formed. And he didn't know how to even draw. Okay, fine, you don't have to know how to draw these days. But he didn't know anything and his team was being subordinated, like subjugated to his level of quality. And he stopped hiring people who are far better than him, right? Because he was not good at it. So, okay, what I'm trying to tell out of it is the guy who hires art directors are more important than the art director itself. The people who are in power, people who have the agency to choose designers to put into that project are not like Steve Jobs. They're not hiring John Ive. They're going for mediocre. They're settling for less. They don't go and reach out to people to find out, hey, whom should I hire? I have 10 people here. Who's the best? Okay, how do you do it? Go and ask people who are, all you have to do is like go and ask people from DreamWorks, go and pay them money. How do you hire? Bring your art director, evaluate my art director, pay them some money and who's the best art director and then do it.
So this is kind of what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that right now there does seem to be both a cultural and structural problem for artists in India. And I'm part of recruiting at our company. I see a lot of market comps for various roles. And artists are paid not so high, right, relative to other roles. And we also see that maybe a lot of these design schools went out of business. And maybe it's because in order for them to be in business, the economics have to make sense. Like you have to be able to get a good paying job after you go to art school in order for that ecosystem to survive.
I want to cut you off there. Sorry to cut you off. So see, that is one good school. There are good schools there. NID used to be good, but now the teachers are declining. There is Strat. There is something called Strat. One of my friend, he's a dean in Strat. It's a design school, and he was a designer for Rolls-Royce. He used to design yachts, and he moved here. And the Raji, they were students of this DSK. He started DSK also. So. There are people doing it, but the problem is he's not able to. He wants me to go and do a guest lecture there. He wants me to help them, but I don't have time because for me time is money, right? I would rather spend more time in things that will make me more money, or it's at last it boils down to how bankable my time is, right?
But this also goes back to, if the artists don't make enough money, then they make enough money, then it makes sense for people to go to design school, and then that design school can pay you to come teach at that design school.
And it's not a chicken and egg problem. It is a very serious problem. Design schools doesn't have good teachers. And good people like Shiraj and me, I need to brag about myself. We don't go and teach. We don't spend time because we don't have incentives to do that.
Yeah.
And the people who are there in these schools are all very average and very mediocre, and that is why those schools are not making money. And because the schools are not able to pay for good teachers, right? See, for example, now BITS have started their design school, and they have deep pockets. They are hiring good talents. So the Strat is a French college. They have started here. They are really doing well. Their students are really good. I have to see. I went to their college and I saw their wall. I saw one drawing. See, aesthetics stands out. So in laws of design, aesthetics is a very important part. When it is beautiful, people will believe. It's a science. I'm not just saying. It's not my opinion. If it is aesthetically good, people will believe that product is genuine. So Hitachi did a lot of experiments with the ATM machines, where some were aesthetically designed and some were not aesthetically designed. People chose to a design which is more aesthetics. Okay, but there are principles for aesthetics. Forget about it. Let's not go there. So schools need good teachers, and those teachers are very less. Out there in West, these colleges were funded by government, right? And they had enough money. The minimum salary for these teachers were very good. And those teachers were able to take care of their children and their education because government education itself was good enough for their children, because they were able to work on the design school as well as take care of their family also.
So we have a broken ecosystem. The only way to fix that, from your perspective, is government needs to get involved.
Yes.
Okay.
In West, government was involved in art community. It made museums, it made art schools, Art Center, Royal College of Art. See, in here, there is only NID, and NID is going down.
Yeah, scholarships as well. If you look at Canada, Canada has an amazing art system, and they have some of the best animators in the world. Some of the best animators in the world, absolutely. And they have they have EA Montreal, 2K Montreal, Rockstar Montreal. They all moved to Canada because they have such an absorbent amount of talent, just purely there. Okay. And that's all because Canada pays for their students to go into the art world.
Right, maybe we could shift gears a little bit. So there's been a lot of success, especially recently in Asia, China, Japan, Korea, a lot of great art. Some of these new games coming out, whether it's Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, the art from, and especially China, is pretty amazing. Are there any lessons we can learn from some of these countries? What can we take from the success in those countries? Why can't India be like China or Korea?
I'll take this. Sorry to cut you out again. Because I'm see, it's an opportunity given for me to rant, right? So I started my outsourced studio. That was my first startup, and I didn't want to do it anymore because I can't compete with Chinese vendors because they're so good, and because they have good art schools. Even the fresh guys coming out of the Chinese art schools are amazing. You know Virtuous? Yeah. It's $1 billion outsourcing studio that's built out of China. outsourced studios making $1 billion. That is because they are in China and they have resources. So, for example, like here I hire an artist. If I ask him to, okay, just paint this, I have to spend so many hours training him the basic fundamentals of in perspective, color theory. No, you can't paint it realistic. When it comes to production, you have to cut down so many things. But the art schools teach all those things. They don't come and learn at the production house. They are production ready, right? So that is why China is better. That is why Indonesia is better. Vietnam is better because they have brilliant art schools.
And those are also cases of civil investment, civics investment.
It begins from the education component. I think it's a mix of everything that we have been saying all this while, right? Like, first of all, within the audience, and I don't even mean to say that whether are you missing in common audiences, and that applies to education. And just like all of these art schools, they are least connected with getting industry level mentorship. I don't even expect that, okay, they should have dedicated faculty who's teaching as professor and teachers, even if they could go to some extra mile where they could have some visiting guest speakers to come over and talk about the industry process, organize studio tours. Have you ever been reached out by any academic school here which wanted to say that, can we visit and see how games are really made? No, right?
Zero.
Exactly. I mean, no one is asking him, no one is asking me. This is how it is. And the problem is, when people like us go, we end up ranting. We end up saying something very true to the reality, and that makes the schools like fear about bringing those people in. Because people who are professional, they go to these places and they end up saying that, well, out from all of you 100 students, only 20 are going to make into the industry. This is a harsh truth. And this is something that the schools cannot tolerate. They cannot go with this reality because end of the day, they have enrolled people. And this is where whole of that quality fluctuation start to take place. But moving away from education and coming to the Korean, Japanese, and all that background, I think it is not just tied up to the game, it's tied up to India coming up with this visual identity of what we can do as creators. And that should start to apply to pretty much, like, I would say even comic, for example. We don't have that own Indian anime or that kind of like version as an identity that will now apply to different kind of product line.
Yeah, and to some degree, like, we don't see any top grossing games from India in the market, but I think once we do, then that studio will have enough resources to be able to invest deeply into art. So I do think that's one of the major factors where if we do finally have a globally competitive Indian game studio that's able to make significant amounts of money, then I do think that will help the ecosystem. Very similar to how Dream Games and Peak helped Turkey, for example.
Yeah. So, but I'm going to counter my own statement before, right? Like, so, yes, there are a lot of game companies which are making a lot of money, more than even top games, right? Like, think about Winzo, Real Money Gaming, and Ludo King. It's making a lot of money. That guy is sitting in like they're making so much money. You won't believe how easy they are making money. It's now to get one user without paying is very difficult. But 2007 and 2015, I think, you can get organic users. Now Google has made it in a way that you can't get organic users. Okay, why I'm telling these numbers and all these things is like, see, studios are tied down by certain metrics, right? Like they have to achieve it. And Yes, Ludo King is famous and it's still in the chart, like top chart. Like if you see in
Top downloads.
Yeah.
Revenue is still
Yeah,
low.
revenue is low, but their EBITDA is good, and if you see their the money spent or like they're very small team, but still are they okay? I was reading an article about NBU. It's called Next Billion Users, and Google has a division called Next Billion Users, and so they conducted some lot of studies on who are these next billion users. Do they like quality or are they okay with average product? And in that study, it came out when Facebook launched Facebook Lite. The Facebook Lite was launched in South Africa, and it was a flop, big flop show. And the guy who launched Facebook Lite, his mentality was, oh, these are people who doesn't have internet, who are below the poverty line or above just on the margin. They don't have much money. So let us give them Facebook Lite, which has less experience, which doesn't look as good as the real Facebook. They went berserk. They told like, we spend this start-off people, we spend more percentage of money in internet than you guys, but you give us Lite? No, damn, we're not using it. Give us the same experience because we spend, if he's earning 100 rupees, if he's paying 30 rupees for internet, it's 30% of his income, but we'll be earning around 1,000 rupees per day or more than that. And we spend, for us it's not 30%, but those users want good product, but see, Ludo King is not giving it. So the inference from Next Billion User study is, people want good product. When you give it, and when there is a competitor, yes, they will take it. But there is a catch. In India, the mentality of Indian audience is little different. They are okay with function, even if the product is bad. But out there, if you go as a a global market, the same Ludo King won't succeed. If there is a competitor, if you just do an A/B test in an investment market where like the same Ludo King, have a Ludo King and then do a far better version of Ludo King, which has more experience, more juiciness. Let's say like Moon Active version of Ludo King, juicy, extremely rendered, highly polished. That will succeed than Ludo King. In India, people are okay with it. People compromise with it. This Next Billion users in India they don't need much quality. So you don't see, actually we spend time how it comes back, right? Like see, for us, we need to get get back to the ROAS. Like we need the return on money. So that is why studios are also constrained. Like see, that is exactly what I'll say as an art director or like a head of design. Hey, you don't have to spend so much because this game is already doing well with less art. Why do you have to spend more money on it? Why do you have to give more quality? Because it's more money spent from the studio side also, right?
Any thoughts, Raj?
I'm just trying to think like what are the main topic, like what are the problems where we are, let's imagine that everything exists, like there is talent, there are people who can create good content, there is money, there is vision where people want to build this kind of like stuff, but then there's something not working, right? Like because we have a big demographic, we have so much of population, we have all kind of right component and stuff that we require to make it work. And I would also sometimes like maybe even argue that there is hunger for quality. There is people who want to create some really good work, and it's not that they're ready to settle for something mediocre. Let's say that there is even expectations on the quality from the one who is creating those content, that I want to create some really good work, as well as also what the businesses want to do. But there's something not working, and this is here, everything is connected from how, for example, the government is supporting by providing those grants and supports, how the Indian studios, so service studios, I don't want to talk about them because their goal is completely into providing services and solutions to international overseas clients. Let's talk about Indian developers here. Are we providing that right space for the right art leaders and the artists from the team to probably come and join that space? And I think we'll have to go with the Indian solutions, like things that work internationally may not work here. So here, if people are curious about stability, the developers which are out here need to come out and say that, hey, trust it. It's not a service studio. We are not working for Zynga or Microsoft or Activision. However, you can trust here that you can have peace of mind of an employment for 4 years, 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, and then relax. Like, you don't need to worry about your family. You can come here, you can get some good pay, and then you can focus on work. So people will feel, okay, we need to reward them more. We need to reward them by creating opportunities which maybe the service studios are not doing. For example, giving them global exposure. If you are here, I will connect you with networks like these, provide opportunities for you. If things can go well for us, we can maybe go to some conferences. Okay, GDC could be a longer route, but why not? Or maybe something. And you can build a team where people can also feel that they are creative owners and not doers. So things like these, I think, will probably like motivate the right talent to probably work for these places.
So the solution is going to have to come from the government and from studios.
Yeah. So, Kim, see, I would want to put out a question here based on my experience, right? Like for discussion. So, so there was this restaurant, right? My friend was running this, because it's an analogy. We can bring that analogy to here, restaurant analogy. So this restaurant they were selling something called paratha. You know, it's like in Madurai, there is something called parathas. It's very famous. And he made a high quality restaurant because the paratha shops are like hole in the wall shops. It's very dirty. And people go and fall into those shops. And there was a shop called A, right? And it was very famous, but it's a hole in the wall shop. It's so dirty and there was no experience in there. And this guy built a place where people can go have a clean dining with family and served paratha. And so there was a customer and he asked this customer for his experience. Like he asked him like, how is the paratha there? And customer told, no, you have to go to the shop A. The paratha is awesome. Then like he was like, then the customer left and my friend told me, you know what? I'm outsourcing paratha from there and then giving it. The paratha served here is from A. And when he comes here, he doesn't think that is exactly the same dish that is served here. So there's something about the demand and Indian mentality. If you're making games for India, your quality of art and everything has to be different standard. If Indian studio is making games for US or Western audience, yes, the quality is different. Now the question is, can a high quality game be made for Indian audience, or can the Indian studios make high quality games? Yes, of course, because like everything is happening from here. Most like China, a lot of things are outsourced here. They have the ability to make it. But Indian games and Indian audiences, they will resort to Bahubali, they will resort to KGF. To me, those are all low quality movies.
But there's also a technology and infrastructure issue there, right? It's not, I don't think it's like Indians prefer lower quality, but because most of India is mobile and a lot of the devices are lower end devices, like you can't necessarily have AAA super high fidelity graphics on a low end device, right?
They play Candy Crush and they play Ludo King, right? Like both of the games can be played in the same devices and they're optimized for good experience. And my mom plays Candy Crush and also she plays Ludo King, but like Ludo King and Teenpati does really well. There was Kama Games Teenpati, which is like highly polished. It didn't do well in India. There is I'm saying something is not adding up with this user personas. And they're like, if it is really good and then beautifully polished, might be like they are, oh no, that's expensive. no, let's not do it. Might be they'll take money out of us. This is a costly restaurant. That don't go in there. That's like the Indian mentality where we go and bargain.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe last question, just to wrap it up here. I think the thing that all of us probably feel in reading the news is all about AI. And so when we talk about AI's potential impact to art, I'd love to hear what you guys think. What will the impact of AI be to art, to your roles as artists? And from an India perspective, will AI in art be a positive force or a negative force? Shraj, what do you think?
I would like to see it this way, that the AI might be able to provide for like technical shaders, for example, or stylization or procedural generation of content. But I think from the vision perspective, I believe that this has to be driven by mostly human, from that viewpoint about what we want to create, how can we establish the look of something, how can we do the narrative in something. Pipeline-wise, of course, maybe if we are trying to create something iconic and stylized in a way, maybe AI might allow you to try out something from technological standpoints to see your visual development and then like kind of enhance it, or whatever you are pushing into the engine to do some dynamic lighting or some stylization of look and feel. But I think visually it has to be driven by a vision, which I am not very sure right now about AI being competent. I think the humans have to come forward, the leadership has to come forward.
But then if you're saying that AI will help those that have vision and are, so it sounds like it would more help the art lead or art director rather than the artist. Wouldn't that be bad for India? So what do you think? Is it good or bad for India?
We have a lot of workforce. We have a lot of population. I think it just requires to be rightly leveraged. I don't think that we are, I mean, finding the right talent is hard, of course. But I don't think we really run into major like budget issues or like stuff like this. I believe like AI will probably potentially provide the leaders and then the visionary, the creative directors to leverage and execute their vision more properly. But I think in the general production efficiency, with and without, we are probably good.
Frank, Dilip?
Mine is going to be longer.
If you asked me like 5 years ago, I'd probably say, oh God, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. My job is gone. This is depressing. What am I going to do with my life? From what I've seen about what's going on with AI, I'm really not too terribly impressed by that at all. Like, I don't see a quality. It's designed to hit the most mediocre point you possibly find, like it has to hit the top arc from whatever you're looking for. I just don't see it as a competitor. Like, whether it's a good or bad thing, like, I understand that, like, people who might hire me might think, oh, this is great, now I can use this, but ultimately, I don't see it as, like, even a little bit of a competition, or even necessarily as a mediocre tool, I guess. I would only really, like, use it if I just really needed something to fill a space very quickly, and then I'll say, okay, I'll get back to this later, right? But like, even that, I can just go to Shutterstock for that. So I don't necessarily see it as like a good or bad thing. I just don't see it being a real competitor to like what I do at all, or what like any like minimal artist does at all. Like, I just don't see the quality level there.
Yeah, there are two parts. Like, one is like what is there now, right? Yes, AI is being trained. So consider AI as a fresher, right? AI is exactly built like human brain, and it learns, like, for example, Shiraj, if he is given a fresher and he gives him a job and he doesn't follow up with it, and what will he be doing for next 1 week? You just don't follow. Just go back and see what he has done in 1 week. He'll be hallucinating because he's not fine-tuned. He's not trained to be. He has not got reviews from Shiraj. So in AI, there are generator and discriminator algorithms. It is done. It is built with these algorithms, and when there are good discriminators, so it is packed with so Shiraj is emulated into a discriminator, and that emulator will make sure the output is good, right? Like, see, the more people like us train the AI gets better and better. But where are we in that? It's very expensive because we can't do it on an individual scale. You need a huge server. You need a big resource, right? So some of my friends, like, see, my brother has a PhD in AI. He got a PhD in AI and from Oxford, and he's doing something on that. So the biggest problem he's facing is so my thing was like, okay, why don't you do something that can satisfy my output? He's been doing it for last 6 months. I have not been able to get one output that I can put it into the game. But can it happen? Yes, it can happen. But more fine-tuning and more resources has to be liberalized and given free. So Google is giving free credits for them to use it, for the new developers, new AI guys to use it. NVIDIA is giving free $300,000 credit for them to use their render engines. Then again, who's going to train it? Another artist has to train it, or an art director has to train it. It will take time, and like 4 or 5 years, yes, it will be there, but it will be use case specific. For example, if one game is designed and there's an art bible for it, and if you want to have regular cadence out of it, then you can use an AI. But you can't generate something completely new.
I actually disagree with you. I don't think it will get better. I think it will get worse with time. And I was explaining to these two gentlemen before, but AI is not only an input, it's an output as well. And the more you output every error, every hallucination, every little snag, every broken pixel into the pool, the more you'll pull out. And generative AI can produce way more artwork than I can ever produce. So much more of that is being generated into the pool. So you're only going to pull out, eventually, you'll only be pulling out errors. A long enough time span, that will just be the medium.
So,
Well, you can't constrain the data set that it runs from.
yeah, so that's why I told there is a discriminator. So if that's something called RAGs. So I understand this far better because I did this whole course, and because to understand whether it can really do it. And me being an artist, yes, I had the same fear. Like, oh man, it's going to, but then, no. And then I thought, no, it's not going to do it. It's not going to replace me. But is it going to help me? Yes, it is going to help me and make me more efficient. Because if I train that AI to be me, by how I discriminate the art generated by the artist, if I can train it, yes, it is possible. So it is called fine-tuning. The fine-tunings are happening. So you have to check this product called Design. Check Design. It is a very good product, and they have fine-tuned it. Check Viscom. Most of the car designers are using Viscom for their car designs. They are appreciating, and then they are bringing into their production pipeline because the Viscom is fine-tuned for car design. So the AI people have to spend fine-tuning those things.
So does AI hurt Indian artists or help Indian artists?
Not right now.
No, it doesn't. It does neither. Right
Not
now.
right now.
Okay,
Not
in
right
a
now.
year from now or 5 years from now.
See, we can't say Indian artist, right? It is like
All
artist.
artists,
Yeah.
yeah. Artists in general, but
No,
like,
not in 10 years.
I don't think even in 10 years, I don't think it'll ever be a real competitor to a human artist.
All right, with that, I think that's it.
Oh, and one thing to any artists out there, like, just stick to your fundamentals. Don't worry about this stuff.
Yeah.
Just keep drawing, keep sculpting, just stick to your fundamentals. You'll be fine.
Any other advice?
No, I think more than advice, first of all, I wanted to say, like, when you reached out about this topic in general as well, I felt like, am I a right person to probably even be on a panel to represent and talk about how can India create a global, Like, see, I chose my career choices based on some very individual choices based on, like, I'm doing nothing for Indian demographic right now from the industry, and I haven't tested those things and failed or succeeded. So probably I'm not the right person, and therefore I would like to know from even someone from here who would counter argue on the things that I said, and they believe that I'm not presenting the right vision or saying the right things. Like, I'm really curious to know what are the problems which people think here are, and let's try to see if we can probably like.
Maybe we could take one or two questions or arguments from the audience. Does anyone have any questions, or do you want to challenge Shiraj? Anyone?
Like, do you guys like face the same problems, or what are the?
Okay, can you pass the mic?
Over there.
Hello, Suraj. And you said like Raji didn't perform well actually. Raji, you didn't perform well in an Indian market or like worldwide market.
I didn't say perform. I thought like it's not up to my standards. It's not high quality.
Okay.
Yeah. So juxtapose Raji with Gears of War or Heavenly Sword or God of War. Raji is like it won't even pass that standards.
Yeah, but like what it makes, like what is your term of, it's very new to Indian market where like gaming, where they are introduced first, where like a step forward ahead than others like.
See, I don't. I think you don't know what is standards. That's why you are having this question.
Okay.
So at some point of time, when you have a good experience, you'll understand it. I can't bring all my 20 years of experience and then explain in one shot, but I'll give you this answer.
Okay.
But based on data. Most of the movies, Avatar, Avengers, all these movies and games are outsourced to India, and Indian artists work on all those movies. If they can make out those quality product, why Rajis are not of those quality product? So it's the people who are making it. They're only that good, and they can't see the fine lines. So if I have more time, I can explain, put a board and then explain why this is good and why that's not good. So it's not my personal suggestion. It's an educated, experience-based understanding that, oh, these are missing. I can just go and break down different games, why it is bad. So Raji, do I appreciate Raji? No, we should not appreciate mediocre. Anything from India, we should stop appreciating mediocre because we are doing good products. There are studios which are doing good products for different companies, but not for themselves.
I would say a slightly different answer here. I don't know the developers. They are not my friends. I don't know them personally, by the way. And to be very honest, like I haven't completely monitored the business performance of the game or what were the audience reaction. I've seen the gameplay. I've played it myself. I would say that it does try to make an attempt, and making games are hard, right? Like we all know that. It's not easy. It's not as straightforward. You can write a book about how to make a good game, but you cannot easily make a good game. That's for sure, right? So there are always tons of challenges when you work in production. I've joined companies when I went to get hired by them, and I looked into their archive, and I looked at the previous asset that they did, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be very easily be able to execute it. But once you go into their own pipeline, you recognize the challenges and problems. You cannot also endlessly continue to develop that game forever, 15 years of production timeline. I think they had to stop it somewhere. They were able to push it to some things. They were able to solve some answers from their choice of style, from the choice of the iconography, from the connection of the culture to the depiction of villains and heroes and inspired. So it's like, at least if not opening the door, then knock at the door. Now it's for the rest of the developers to probably like continue that pursuit, try to find some new answers, try to find some new keys to open that door, or get a woodlock to just break through the door. I think we'll all have to contribute in some way to try to answer that thing until we get our own Wukong and stuff like this. Until that, I think every attempt has to be probably appreciated. So that would be my say on this one.
Yeah, I think you guys are both right? Like it's a good attempt. It's hard to make games, so at least it's an attempt. But to your point, let's be realistic. Let's not call it God of War. It's not God of War. Right? Yeah.
It's a good attempt, yes.
Why why we cannot make a games like Wukong or something? It's because of a budget or because of a resource? So, like Black Myth Wukong or like any AAA title, like what we are lagging of? Because of the resources or because of the budget? Or because of ideas?
My mindset, like, see, any good product comes out only because there is commitment till the end, right? If there is lack of commitment, see, you can say like I have an amazing idea, but if you don't have a committed team to see till the final edge, like, see, it is very difficult to make something like that. Uh, you have to we were talking about it. You have to work 7 days a week. You have to work 24/7. I have been in DreamWorks. I have sat in office for like 2 months. I was in office. I didn't go home. I ate burger. I was not. I didn't. I like ate burger, sat there, changed my dress. Two dress. I had an REI pant where so I bought two clothes like black REI because you can just wash it and then dry it and then immediately two pants, and I was staying in office just to finish my shot for 2 months. If we so commitment has to be improved in India. Like, see, people want to finish and go back home. If it's just a job, it's not going to happen that way. If it has to have a lot of commitment to see that kind of product. Yeah.
I have to agree with Dilip. You know, being here for the last over 4 years, I do think that's the biggest hurdle right now from my perspective as an outsider, just being completely non-biased. There is an issue because of the services industry background here, and because of companies like Zynga, and I don't want to call out Zynga, but you know they've attacked me, so I can say stuff about them.
I'm with you.
When they say you must have work-life balance, you know, you can't make something great with work-life balance. And when you're starting at a deficit, right? And you've got China working 996, and they have so much experience and expertise, and then you've got these people here who are like, Zynga told me I need work-life balance. I'm going to make Black Myth Wukong without the proper skill set and working 9 to 5. Is that realistic, really? Come on, right?
See, it's. I would like to do something like that, and that is my balance because I'm so interested in doing that. And if you are interested, you can do that, right? Like, see, if someone, there'll be a lot of different kind of people. Like, okay, in that same game, some guy would have contributed on some part of it, but yeah, like there's place for all type of people. But you know what? Those kind of things doesn't come out without dedication. They would have spent hours and hours, years, and burning the midnight oil to get that. See, that's true.
And let's be fair. Look, I have no hatred for Zynga, just to be clear. I'm glad there's a Zynga. I hope people who want work-life balance work at Zynga. That's great. But I'm just saying, to the question about Black Myth Wukong, that's difficult. That's a major, major ambition, right? And for that kind of ambition, you need a team that is so dedicated, so committed. That's not here yet because there's so many people coming from services company, so many people coming from Zynga in India. That's the problem.
Yeah, it came like when Zynga was started, Zynga was incubated,
used
there
to be
was no
hardcore.
work-life balance.
I know.
I used to work for Farmville.
Yeah, I know. I've met that.
I've been like sitting in, dude, I have not gone for 1 year. I didn't go to my home because I was stationed in US. Like I had to finish certain projects. I was not going home.
Yeah, it changed like 5 years ago. Is my understanding. Okay, we can take maybe one last question right here.
Thank you. So, with relation to budget issues and resources issues, there's also a issue with the government, in that sense that India has a really rich culture of stories and art, right, as you said. But whenever you express this art into games or art now, you also face a lot of political backlash or religious backlash on how things are represented. So do you think it's an issue and how can we solve it?
Sorry, it's like so every time there are compliances, there will be restrictions. So if you are representing Maori culture or Hawaiian culture, yes, you need to follow certain guidelines, and that doesn't stop us from being good or good. Right? The quality fundamentals. Again, I'm going here. Keep your fundamentals high, even if it is AI. You won't be so that everyone can have a camera in your hand, and no one can be answer labs. You can have a pencil in your
Right, but Shiraj, the question was like when some people work on art, there's a lot of backlash. Was the question, right?
Yeah, not with respect to AI also, but how things are represented religiously. For example, if Ramayana was to be made into a game, then how would some people sort of see if, say, there was a mistake in representing Ram, it was represented in sort of cyberpunk way or something like that, then maybe some people won't be able to take it in a artistic way. They would be offended by it. So
Like the depiction of art that might have some religious backlash.
She's basically political backlash against anything she might make.
Kind of like what you, yeah.
Well, so I would say, like, I can't speak to this for a myriad of reasons, but I would try to tell you, try to not be mediocre. Try to do something, something that you feel in your heart that you want to express out in the world. All game design is art. It's all art. Some art is usually best when it's subversive. I'm not telling you to be subversive. I'm just saying don't be mediocre.
Yeah. I mean, everyone will align to this. I agree, absolutely. Also, maybe there's a little twist to this that you still have to be a bit more experimental and try to not follow the convention. At least if you're trying to come up with something very innovative from the realm of trying to provide the solution that India is looking for. If we follow so much formulas altogether from how the work have been done in the past, then it might be a problem. But of course, that doesn't take away the credit of right fundamental aesthetics and benchmark. And,
So think about Lord of Rings, right? There is no one, we keep bragging that we have rich culture, Ramayana, all those. Like, do you think there is one movie like equivalent to Lord of Rings? No. If it is something there, people will appreciate it, definitely. How do you represent doesn't matter, but how do you, the quality, right? If there is a Ramayana like Lord of Rings, a Mahabharatam like Lord of Rings, definitely it's going to be good and people are going to boast about it because, our Indian movies of that quality and it's seen by the whole world, people will boast rather than just complaining.
All right, with that, guys, I think we will have some food in the back, so feel free. Thank you to the speakers, Frank, Dilip, Shiraj, thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.